Hey, it's Hannah, and we're going to move through a yin practice for the hips. Now, for this practice, it's nice to have a few props around. Whether you're at home using pillows and blankets, or if you're in a studio, or you have access to these props, I'm using a bolster, 2 blocks, and a blanket, but just use what you've got at home. You don't need anything fancy. Feel free to put on some of your own music. Otherwise, we'll do this practice in silence. I'll talk to you though. But yeah, if you don't know what to put on, I can also link a Spotify playlist for some nice calm tunes that I've made that people seem to like. Anyway, let's get right into this. And start seated. Any comfortable seated position will do. You don't need to have a perfectly tall spine, just find where you're at today. Let's take a few breaths just to settle in. So breathe in fully and let it go. And 2 more like that. We're all here breathing with you. Last one. And see if you can just watch your breath as it is. No need to change it, just notice it. This yin way of being. When you're ready, blink your eyes open. Let's stretch the right leg out to the side. Now feel free to sit up on a prop here, maybe a folded blanket, and that can help you to tip forward. Otherwise, try to keep your spine pretty long. Keep your left leg bent. Think of that knee getting heavy without too much effort. And then fold over that extended leg. So you'll feel this through the back of your extended leg and a little bit through your inner hip and thigh of the bent leg. As always, I will set a timer just so that we're nice and even side to side. So in yin, we try not to push or force, we just allow. If you round your back, you'll get more sensation through your spine, but since we're focusing on the hips today, do your best to keep your spine quite long. Over time, you might get a little bit lower, but that's not the goal. The goal is to just be here and breathe and feel the sensation of this pose. You might hear some doggy noises. By the way, I've got a couple dogs here with me. More than halfway through this shape. And just a couple more breaths. Nice and slow inhale. And a long, slow breath out. And stay for one more just like that. Make your way up, nice and slow. And then we'll just switch out the legs. Feel free to take more time between sides if you'd like. And then we'll try it out on the second side. So again, spine is as long as is comfortable for you. And you don't need to flex or point your foot, just kind of let the leg relax there. The studio is really creaking today. I'm in a studio basically right in the middle of the woods. And it tends to creak if it's windy or the temperature is changing. If your mind has started to drift, just bring it back to your body, to your breath, and to how this shape feels in your body. And just a couple more breaths in and out. In and out. And come on up. Give your shoulders a roll. Move your legs around. And we're going to come into that classic hip opening pose, pigeon. In yin, we call it swan. So for this, it can be nice to use a couple pillows here. I'm using a bolster. And you can put those pillows widthwise on your mat. And let's start by just stepping, let's do the left leg first. We tend to do the right first, so we'll start on the left. Step your left foot over, and then crawl it over to the right. Start to lower down onto that bolster. So you've got your left hip propped up by the bolster. Now you can stay here with your hands down, your hands up. Maybe you bring your head onto your block or a few blocks. So you choose. Now, if you wanted, you can do this, of course, without the bolster and just choose whatever angle you want your shin on. You could even do a deer pose, bending that back leg and folding over. Find what feels right in your hip that doesn't bug your knee or your ankle. So that deep stretch through the left hip, but we want it to be sustainable. So not too deep of a stretch that you can't hold it for a few minutes, but not so little that you're not feeling anything at all, which is pretty hard to do in pigeon. Now, as we hold this shape, it is super common for emotions or old thoughts or old feelings to pop up. There's an idea that we kind of sit on our feelings. So when we start to stretch out through the hips, through the glutes, those feelings that we've been sitting on can come up. It's a release. You can trust that it's a release. You don't need to figure out where the thought or where the feeling or anything came from. Just watch as it comes and goes. Of course, if it starts to feel overwhelming, then take a break. You can ditch this pose, you can ditch this practice. Just do what you need to do to keep yourself feeling good. Oftentimes, just watching the pose and the feeling fade is really the kind of magic part of it. Where can you soften? And take one more breath in. Stay for the breath out. And then come out of this pose. I like to swing the back leg up and just sit for a moment. You might prefer movement or child's pose or something else entirely. Do you feel up to do the second side? Let's try it out. So you know your options. You can do something different on this side if you'd prefer. whatever feels right for you. The timer is set and we will settle in. And give yourself the space and time to settle. If there's anything we have in yin, it is time. Notice if there's anywhere in your body that isn't feeling very relaxed. And see if you can breathe into that area and just invite it to soften. Just sending your awareness there can do a lot. And just a few more breaths. We made it. Slowly, slowly come on up. Any way you want. And give your legs a break. And take your time to just process. How the pose fades out, how something that felt so long-lasting when we were in it, so serious, so intense when we're in it, just fades away, and your body and your mind can really just forget about it once it's done. If that ain't a metaphor for life, I don't know what is. The hard stuff passes. If you just breathe through it. Okay, so we've done a little bit for the outer hips, pigeon, a bit for the back of the legs and the inner hips. Now it's time to get into the front of the hips, your hip flexors. So these tend to be quite tight for lots of people if you sit a lot or drive a lot. So there's a lot of different ways to do this one. Option 1, lay on your side, reach for your top foot with your top hand. Option 2, roll onto the back of your head, place the top of your foot down back behind you. I'll show you from this side. That's option 2. Now, there is a third option. And for this, it can be nice to use your pillows, maybe a blanket. And you can also place a blanket under the tops of your feet for more support through the ankle, the top of the foot. So you could roll your blanket into a little roll and place it under the tops of your feet so there doesn't need to be fully straight there. Now this one is called saddle pose. So you can widen out through your knees, bring your toes to touch or close to it. And I like to lift the hips and then just place your seat between your feet. So you've made like a little bowl for your seat. You can stay like this. You can lower down. You could add blocks underneath this setup so that you can lie down right here. If you've got more space, lie back further. You could even ditch the bolster behind your back and lie down flat on your back. So whatever option you take, there's no like right or wrong or anything like that. But if you are doing one side at a time in either of the first two options, I'll let you know when we're halfway through so you can switch sides. And again, we want it to be a sustainable shape. So it should feel like nothing on your knees. And it should just feel like a nice release through the front of your hips and thighs. If you're way down on the ground, you can reach your arms overhead. And just breathe into it. If you are doing one side at a time, you can go ahead and switch. And just a few more slow, easy breaths. Remember, you can come out of the pose well before I cue it. You can stay longer. You are in complete control of your practice. Last breath in. And let it go. Now, if you are doing one side at a time, just roll out of this. If you are in saddle, sometimes you feel like you just need a forklift to scoop you up and lift you up. Otherwise, you can bring your elbows down, press into them, and walk yourself up. Maybe a child's pose feels nice. Maybe you want to give the tops of your feet a good stretch. Brand new hips and legs. Let's meet lying on our backs. Stretch out any way you want. And just soak up the practice. So I invite you to stay here as long as you'd like. Whether you've got 5 minutes or 15 or 5 hours. Spend as much time as you want here. Otherwise, we will do 3 more breaths together, and then I'll end the video with no exit sound. So you can just chill and drift for as long as you'd like. So let's breathe in. Out. In. Out. Last one, in together. And a collective exhale. Thank you so much for being here with me and practicing with me. Keep resting.